Confidence in the national education system is falling, something which can be clearly seen by the growing enrolments in private and international schools. The number of international schools have grown from 66 to 126 after the government opened enrolment to Malaysians in 2012. These are expensive fee-paying schools, with approximately 40,000 Malaysian students enrolled, 1% of the total student population. So what's wrong with Malaysian national schools? Schooling, with approximately 5 million students, employs just under 500,000 teachers, administrators, and government officials, with the ministry taking approximately 20% of government budget.
Are we underspending in education? No, we're not. Education spending to GDP in Malaysia is one of the highest, if not the highest, in Southeast Asia. We spend 16% of our GDP on education. How much does Singapore spend? 11%. How much does Japan spend? 7%. It effectively means that the Malaysian government, whether it's PH, BN, PN, whatever you name it, outspends Japan by a factor of 2 when it comes to education spending. Question is, how is our output?
Recently, the ministry has reported on marginal improvement of students, said to be attributed to the use of higher order thinking skills. This improvement is reflected in SPM and PISA 2018 results, which showed marginal improvement in reading, mathematics, and science. PISA, or Programme for International Student Assessment, is OECD's program, conducted every 3 years in over 90 countries. It measures 15-year-olds' ability to use their reading, mathematics, and science knowledge to meet real-life challenges. Despite this, Malaysia is still ranked 48 out of 72 OECD countries for PISA 2018, and well below the OECD average. So how can we improve the standing of Malaysian national schools and the quality of our graduates? Research has suggested 5 key areas for improvement.
So first of all, there is a declining quality. We need to ask the question why and take remedial action. Second, we have a polarized education system. And we all know the reason for this. There are many different school systems. What happens is these school systems tend to group students in terms of race, language, and religion. So our young are not getting together and interacting enough. Despite what policymakers say they want, there is no dual language proficiency, with English standards being very poor and declining. We are heading to a situation where our syllabus is getting more and more irrelevant. There's perhaps too much of emphasis on religion, and religious leaders are getting to be rather influential in terms of what is taught in especially national schools. And there's no emphasis on thinking skills and on practical matters such as financial literacy, which we badly lack. And finally, we have a poor digital rollout, which is way behind schedule.
While each of these issues should be addressed specifically, the McKinsey report has proposed 3 general starting points that would improve the quality of any school.
The first of these is teachers. Getting the right people to become teachers. The quality of the system cannot exceed the quality of the teachers. We did something bad many years ago in the 80s when we dropped the entry quality for teachers. And it's something which we are still suffering from.
I think we should be serious about exiting some really, really bad teachers. Yeah. For instance, teachers were absent.
Yeah.
For instance, we have that court case in Kota Belud where the teacher did not go to school for years and years. And I think he should just admit guilt, and I think the ministry should just wash their hands off him, fire him, and not waste taxpayers' money to go into court year after year after year. Yeah, and then, absent teachers, underperforming teachers, let's get rid of this so that we can bring in the younger teachers who are more IT savvy and more willing to bring in new ideas.
And I just want to say that in our experience in the trust schools, a lot of the IPGM, that's a teacher training graduates, right? A lot of the graduates are actually fantastic. There are many. I wouldn't want people to think that IPGM and the campuses are not producing good teachers. There are good teachers. But very often what happens is they go into a school, right, that their peers and their leaders will say, ala, apalah, you nak, sibuk-sibuk, nak pandai-pandai to do all the things that they've actually learned, right? So many of our new teachers do have the capacity, but they're not given the encouragement and development to grow.
The next step is development. once you identify, you get good people to become teachers, you have to develop that into effective instructors.
Our observation, our experience of the schools, yes, you can have a great leader that can drive things, but we also know in the system there's a very short runaway and there's a lot of turnover. They get transferred here, they get transferred there. So what we focus on when we go into a trust school is to identify middle leaders, right? So there has to be that succession plan to ensure that there is sustainability in that culture, because if it's tied to an individual or a personality, when that person moves, it goes, right? So it is about developing a school culture that goes beyond the individuals and getting the middle leaders on board who will sustain that culture.
We must actually select the right principal, trust the principal, and let the school have something unique because of the area, of the community, of the history of the school. Let the principal have more responsibility of charting a school culture for their own school. Now, that actually will bring out the sort of talent, commitment, and the gung-ho. Everybody will actually compete.
Finally, the systems and supports, infrastructure, we have to put in places and systems which are targeted and ensures every child benefits from excellent instruction. The only way to the highest performance is to raise the standard of every child.
Let's just not forget, let's bring it back to students. Everything that we do, any reform that we make, has to have students at the center. And this is sometimes, when we work at the trust schools, it's lost. When we work with the ministry, that seems to have been lost. Education is about, what did they say? I think it was Yeats who said, it's not about the filling of the pail, it's the lighting of a fire, right? So education should be that inspiration. It's about being able to handle the challenges of the future. So let's not forget that students should, by right, be at the center of everything that we do.
Sadly, this is often not the case, even when expert studies have been commissioned and student-focused recommendations have been submitted to the Ministry of Education.
We came up with recommendations, and after, I think, meeting almost 100 times in that 2 years, not just the council, but also on subcommittees, I'm afraid our recommendations are sitting on somebody's table, not acted upon, not read, and even at that level, we are unable to influence policies. The public would think that we are very powerful. Actually, we're not. It really depends on what the minister wants to do and what kind of legacy he wants to leave for the ministry.
Can we afford to use the education system as a political sphere of influence? Can we instead ensure a minimum standard in schools so that the youth of today can be productive members of society? And if schools conform to quality standards, can we avoid using anecdotal stories to cause racial and religious conflicts? Malaysia used to be at the forefront of progress in many areas, but we've lost some ground. Let's now work together on education, the future of the nation. Good Capitalism, this is Tara Sekhar for GCF Breaking Down the Issues.